Hey everyone, it's the Shawn. Welcome to another edition of Great Sales Leaders. Today we have Deb Mrazek joining us. She is with the sales company. She also is the author of the Field Guide to Sales, and she's really great with relationship selling. So the theme of the show is helping sales leaders understand how to sell better, how to manage their sales team. So we want to take relationship selling, something we hear a lot, and dive a little bit deeper about how does it really work. And I know Deb's got some great stories about the work she's had to do to build relationships, and then keeping those relationships. So we're going to dive into that today. I'm sure there's going to be some great lessons to you. My regular co-host Shannon Gregg is in flight right now, so she will not be joining us for this recording. So for those of you that are missing Shannon, tune in again. She'll be back. Don't worry about that. She just got tied up and the schedule didn't play exactly as planned. For those of you who don't tune in as often, I'm the Shawn. I am a corporate lawyer by training. I help businesses with everything related to ownership and control of their business. So that's partnership agreements, it's mergers, it's capital raises, contract negotiations. And I spend a lot of time on the future of business, looking at what that future is going to be, what the future will develop, and what demands that'll put on business. And this show really is about sales leadership and what sales leadership is going to look like in the future. Always remind folks, we don't do investment advice. We don't do legal advice on the show. For those items, talk to your own advisors. But we do want your comments. So drop them below wherever you're watching, whether that's on one of our LinkedIn feeds, our Shawn McBride fans audiences on Facebook, if you're on the Great Sales Leaders YouTube channel, wherever you're at, drop your comments below because we want to hear from you. We want to hear what challenges you have. We'd also love to hear your takeaways. So engage with us. We will engage back. With that, Deb, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me.
Good morning.
Good morning. So always fun to get to chat with you. You and I have known each other for a while now, and
Yes.
we've had a number of conversations. And as Shannon and I have been doing this show, we were looking for guests. I said, hey, Deb would be great to get on here to talk about relationship selling, and would love to just get your general overview into it. And then there's definitely one story of yours that I want to dive into a little bit so the
Oh
audience.
my.
Yes.
Oh my. No warning here.
Yes, exactly.
Well,
So,
I believe that, no matter what the technology is today that we have and how it might enhance what you're doing in sales, people still buy from people. And as long as that is true, then relationship selling is going to be the key to your success. Whether the relationship you have with that customer or client is one time or a lifetime, it is critical to the experience that you have and that they have with you in your company.
I couldn't agree more. On my other channel, Future Done Right, my YouTube channel, I spent a lot of time thinking about the future of business, what that future is going to look like and how it's going to develop. And one thing we talk a lot about is with AI, machine learning, all this stuff coming, the computers can automate specific tasks, they can do specific things, but they are terrible with seeing the big picture, seeing the interconnection. And that's really what a great sales relationship leads to, right? Is you know what your customer wants, you know what their demands are, and you can get them a tailored product or service.
And the experience that they have with you.
Mm-hmm.
That human experience. I was just with, I've got it right here, Daniel Newman this last week talking about digital transformation. And he had just come back from the Global Congress in Barcelona on this subject and talking about AI and all these things. And at the end of the day, he said, no matter what all of these technologies are, whatever, if you don't have culture, and if you don't have experience for your people, and those experience have to do with people, then all this other stuff is irrelevant.
Yep, I think that's right. So, Deb, I want to start with the one example that just burns in my mind from years ago is, you spent a long time courting customers, right? You actually would show up and wait to meet them. Yes. But why don't you talk a little bit about that, right? When you want to develop the relationship, but maybe it's not easy, what do you recommend to people? If they know there's certain customers or certain targets they need to get in front of, what do you recommend they do?
You bet. So if you've identified your market and what you want, who you want kind of thing, that they're absolutely right for you. you. I think, Shawn, you're referring to my story when I sold printed circuit boards.
Yes, I believe that's the one.
Okay, very good. So I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, there were 3 companies that bought millions of dollars a year in printed circuit boards. And I would love to have all 3 of these companies, but, and I had identified they were right. I had called on all of them, but one of them was very close to my house. One was, you know, like an hour or so away, one's like 40 minutes away, and one by my house. So I had the opportunity to go in. I'd been able to introduce myself. I had sold them other things in the past when I was selling semiconductors and things, but I decided they were the right company. I'd done my due diligence. And so I started stopping by there every day on my way home. I was doing outside sales, and I stopped in every evening on my way home, and I sat in their lobby. And, you know, they saw me, they were around me, you know, that kind of thing. Here's the deal. The question always is in sales, so how long should you do it? Well, you know, there's the 3 times, 7 times, whatever. My feeling is if you have identified the right company, the right people, the right opportunity, the right product, then you do it until it's done. And this particular story that Shawn's referring to took 3 years. Okay, I know that sounds ridiculous, but 3 years. I'm sitting in their lobby 3 years later, and one evening, gentleman comes, and I mean, it is fury. You hear this man coming and comes out, and he's just screaming, and he's screaming my name. He's like, Mrazek. And so I'm like, what? You know, oh my gosh. Well, these printed circuit boards went in a system that was a telecom system, and they had shut down the entire East Coast. So you can only imagine how critical this was. And so he's like, you're always saying you can help us, and, you know, our supplier didn't do great, you know, so what are you going to do? And I said, sir, you know, I'll be here in the morning, you know, kind of thing with my team. So he leaves, goes back, he's furious, and well, I had to fly my team in. That's 5 red-eye tickets from California is where my team was. I had them lined up in his lobby like they were military people in the morning. And I told them, we will all stand here until this gentleman arrives. And when he arrived, we could see him in the parking lot because it was the big lobby, you know, glass windows and all. When this guy turned around to start to walk in the building, he just started shaking his head and smiling. He opens up the door to his building and goes, what the hell are you doing? I said, you said today was my turn. Well, I wrote $10 million worth of business that week. $10 million worth of business in that commodity for me would have been great business in 3 years. So building that relationship, sticking it out, knowing it's the right one. And to this day, we're talking years later, we still have that relationship based on our integrity, showing up, not cherry picking, just, you know, when you thought the opportunity was there, but being there, believing in them and developing the relationship. And I always say the other thing about that relationship was it allowed me the opportunity to know everybody from the front door to the back door of that organization. And we went on and did millions for years.
And you had great success with it. And reminds me a lot of a story I heard with Michael Bloomberg, you know, and he apparently went into, I think it was Merrill Lynch every morning, you know, back before they had big security in New York City. He would just show up and start delivering coffee to people. Building relationships, which led to the opportunity to sell his information service into them. So there's something about sticking it out. Now, one thing, and Shannon's big about this, you know, because Shannon, my partner, and I know you don't know Shannon as well, but her main focus is sales and productivity systems, CRMs. And a big part of the work her and I do, and when we talk to our clients, is, you know, screening. And what you did wouldn't have worked if you hadn't the screen, right? So can you talk some about screening? Who do you develop relationships with? Who do you focus on?
So for me, understanding what you're selling. So in my case, we had to work with engineers. We're designing in these printed circuit boards, but we also had to work with quality control, which is how we actually got in. That was the gentleman that was so angry that day. He, of course, was responsible for what wasn't working. And then also to have a relationship with procurement, because that's where the orders actually came from. So maintaining all of those and understanding how the three of them work together, because sometimes I know many of you work for companies and one department doesn't work so well with the other department.
Yeah.
And so you can be that conduit. You can be the relationship person even between them sometimes, helping them understand what's going on.
Yeah, and so you've got to understand that internal, right? So first you got to understand who to have a relationship with, and you were very focused. You knew who your potential customer was. You knew it was worth spending the time to wait for the opportunity to arrive. And then once you're in or once you're developing it, then you got to figure out what the team is, right? Because there's usually multiple, and particularly in bigger accounts, and people get frustrated with this, but it's just the reality. There's multiple decision makers.
Right.
And so you relationship build with all the decision makers, it sounds like, and so you make sure
And that's a great point, because there are different decision makers at different levels, but the decision makers aren't always the people. For example, you think about being the executive team or the senior level team and all. Let me tell you that one of the reasons this story worked so well for me was, believe it or not, the woman who was the receptionist for this company sat in that lobby. I assure you that if I did not have a relationship with this woman, and like I said, I'd known her before because I'd sold other things there before, she would never have allowed me to sit in that lobby every day. She would have found a way for that not to happen. So that relationship with her, that decision maker, like who was going to be in her lobby and get to be able to stay there every day, was also very key in the success story.
Yeah. So, and this is something we hear over and over again too, right? There's usually some form of gatekeeper to the person you want, and sometimes it's the person in the lobby, it's the person answering the phone. It can be key to build a relationship, not necessarily at the level that you're selling at.
Right. Exactly. Because it's all, and here's the deal. Are you wanting to get in and do the deal for one time or a lifetime? Yeah. For me, if I'm doing, whether like now I do consulting and coaching, I would love to do business with people again and again and again. They don't need me every month. They need me when they need me. Mm-hmm. And the same is true when I was selling commodities. They may not need what you have every month, but I want to be the one they call when they do need me. So whether they need me this month, this year, next year, 3 years from now, I'm committed to my business and what I'm doing. And I want that long-term relationship.
Right. Relationship building, long-term relationships. I mean, it seems to make a lot of sense in sales because, hey, it takes you a long time to build the trust to get the first sale. So if you're going to do all that work, you may as well, leverage it and use it to create multiple sales. That raises the question. We hear different philosophies on this. What do you do on the next level of it to keep the relationship going? Do you have a strategy or a plan to maintain the relationship or to
Absolutely. So for example, if I had done business with someone this year, we finished the project, that we were working on. Like I said, they may not need me for 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever it is. Well, I have a follow-up plan I use. I do newsletters, and in this day and time, I use social media to keep in touch with people. And on my social media, I use it not only from a business aspect, but a personal aspect. Because one thing in building a relationship with people, they're people. They have a life outside the 8 hours they're in their building working and perhaps doing business with you. And so I try to engage with them that way. And so with social media, whether they're Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, I try to connect with them and be connected. So I want to be top of mind to them, whether we're doing business this week, next year, or like I said, 5 years from now. I want them to remember me. And the other thing is with that is it is so much easier to get the second sale when you've had that relationship, had a great experience the first time. So even if the second sale isn't for a year from now or 2 years from now, there's so many things that are already established. And the fact that you kept up with them for a year, for 2 years. Again, not just like, great, I got this order, I'm done, but that you maintained, if you will, that relationship in this virtual way.
Yeah.
People have got that, and it's easier to do business.
Right. Well, a lot of people, there's always this ongoing debate of, the business versus personal. And I think, for me, the lines get somewhat blurred, but, what are your tips for that for people? Like, how do you balance knowing people in business and also, connecting with them on social media, maybe particularly like Facebook and some of the more personal channels?
You bet. Well, here, one thing I'd like to say about that first is what I'm amazed about is, like I said, I'm very active on social media, both business and personal. And you know how people, they follow you or they're friends with you or whatever, and you may not be communicating directly one-on-one with them. But then you're at a luncheon in your community and somebody comes up and goes, oh my gosh, I saw last week you were in Austin with your grandchildren and all, and you had no idea that they were paying attention to what you were doing. And
Right.
so that relationship, whether you realize it or not, is ongoing, even if they're not communicating with you, which I think is quite intriguing in this day and time.
Yeah, I think it is interesting, and I see the same thing, and I also see the same thing from people I'm connected with. Maybe I'm not having a conversation with them. I'm posting videos. I'm putting value out there, but sometimes people don't even comment at all. Sometimes it's only a handful of comments. But then what'll happen is I'll be somewhere, and somebody will be like, "Oh, I watched that video you did with Deb, and I thought that relationship building, was very powerful, and I've been using some of the tips." So, it just says something about, I guess, being consistent about the relationship building and just being out there, right?
Well, I think it's about showing up and following up.
Yep.
So we have more opportunities to follow up today because of the technology. It isn't just about you have to get somebody on the phone and be able to talk to them. You obviously still have voicemail, you have text, you have email, you have newsletters, you have social media. So I believe that when people know that you're intentional about what you're doing all the time, not just the day you want to get the order from them, that they feel like they're connected with you, even though they may not, like you weren't out to dinner with them on Saturday night with your family. They
Right.
feel like they know you. They feel connected to you in that way.
Yeah, and part always underlies relationship building for me is trust, right? I mean, that's really what you're trying to build. I mean, you being there in the
Absolutely.
lobby every day for 3 years shows, hey, this woman shows up, right? She's trustworthy.
Well, but that's just it. Are you who you are?
Right.
There's a lot, there is a lot to be said for that, about integrity, about being willing to do the work, stick it out, because also it was an extremely difficult problem to solve, even when we got the opportunity, and then carrying that through. So
Right.
I think, people seeing who you are, if you're that person all the time. I don't know about you, Shawn, but I know when I wrote my first book, I had, it came to me, it's like, I would not want anybody to read that book and then meet me in person and go, those don't sound like the same people.
Right. Yep.
You need to be who you are all the time. I'd like to think I am of integrity all the time. I care about other people all the time. I really am a nice person most of the time. Don't ask my kids.
Yeah.
But, it's like I am who I am. So you can feel like you know me. And even if you haven't seen me in a long time, you still feel very comfortable, like, you do maybe with your friend, your personal friend, where, you maybe haven't seen him in 6 months, but you pick up like yesterday and like no time has passed. That is a priceless relationship.
Right. And I think that's what you should be aiming for, right? Is be yourself, show who you really are, show your strengths and weaknesses. I think there's something to be said for showing some weakness, right? You can't put yourself as being perfect, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would tell you that when I was younger, I was very embarrassed. I would want to cover up, not, in a bad way, but, I would just feel badly if I didn't do something quite right.
Yeah.
And, thankfully, I had somebody who was coaching me and said, it's okay if it's not right all the time. Do you expect everybody to do everything just right the first time, all the time? And it was like, well, no. And it's like, well, why do you expect that of yourself? And when you allow yourself to be vulnerable to say, hey, listen, You know, I've gone in, I've done this, you know, it did not work. This is what happened. You know, people can relate to that. People being perfect, you know, it may look good on paper, but people don't really relate to that.
Yeah, it speaks to trust too,
Right.
because there's just something fundamental out there. If somebody seems too perfect, the sales rep's got all the answers, we often walk back and scratch our head and say, where's the problem?
Right.
Right.
Well, you know, that trust and that authenticity, you know, oftentimes we'll say about people, oh my gosh, he's got it. Well, what
Right.
is it? Well, we may not be able to name it, but that trust, you know, that authenticity, that real you, people get that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and they know when they don't get it. They still can't tell you what it is they're not getting, but
Yep.
they know they don't get it. But when
Right.
they do get it, they know, and they're attracted to that, and they will stay.
Yep. So Deb, I know you're doing some fantastic work. This is just part of what you do with sales teams. Why don't you tell folks how they can get some more of your resources and get to know you better and potentially engage with you and your ability to help them.
Excellent. You can check out my website, the-sales-company.com. I do coaching and consulting for individuals and companies, mainly around, you know, sales performance, helping them be the best that they can be.
Mm-hmm.
And then for people who maybe just need a little bit of help with sales just from now and then, and would just like to be connected to me, you know, in a small way, then I have a new program that I developed that's a membership program called Great Salespeople. And you can check that out at great-sales-people and join in our community. So we're having fun over there.
Fantastic. Thanks for making some time, Deb, this morning. It was a lot of fun as usual.
Well, it's great to be with you and your audience.
Love these conversations. Folks that are listening, take a moment, pat yourself on the back, you know, doing the hard work, thinking about your future investing, thinking about how to get better at relationships, really going to pay some dividends for you. So I'm glad you're doing the work. Would love your comments. Drop them wherever you're watching. Great Sales Leaders YouTube channel. If you're watching on Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever you're watching, drop some comments. We'll be checking them out. We want to hear the challenge you're dealing with, maybe some takeaways, maybe something we didn't cover today because we can try to cover it in a future segment. I also want to remind you, you can go to salesleadershipdoneright.com. You can see our past episodes. You can see upcoming guests and episodes. You can also join our mailing list all over there. So we look forward to engaging with you folks. Thanks for being here today. We'll have more great content coming with you. And Deb, thanks for being such a wonderful guest.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.